What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. This video, I am live on YouTube, like every single video I do. And this video, I'll be talking about, with the NFL draft coming up just next month, it just seems, crazy. I believe we're only 50 days away now, and I'm, really looking forward to it. So, the quarterback prospects will be really interesting to see where some of these, quarterbacks goes. How many quarterbacks will be in the first round, where some of these quarterbacks make it the top 10, top 20, stuff like that. So this video will be a video about my personal rankings of the top quarterbacks in the draft this upcoming season. For the most part, I would say they're, close to the majority of people, except for my final two. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Number 5 is Matt Jones. I like Matt Jones a lot. Matt Jones does everything so well. Like, he's accurate. He's extremely smart. He knows when to throw the ball away. His deep ball, for the most part, is pretty good. But with Matt Jones, he's the only person in the top 5. I'm doing top 5 quarterback prospect rankings. He's the only person in this top 5 I don't really have a comparison for. He's like I said, he's good. He's smart. He does everything well. Doesn't do anything spectacular. But the thing about Matt Jones, and the reason why I have Matt Jones number 5, is because his potential. Some of the other quarterbacks like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson, all those guys to me have more potential. And you're drafting those type of quarterbacks on their, what they can potentially be for a team. In my opinion, Matt Jones, he's not really one of those quarterbacks in the fact that, in my opinion, I kind of feel like Matt Jones is already a finished product. I mean, he does everything so well, but I just kind of feel like he's reached his potential. Kind of similar how a couple of seasons ago, when the New York Giants selected Daniel Jones, it was kind of the issue was, some people, did not think Jones drafted that high because, he's just already as good as he's going to get. He's probably not going to get better. And that's kind of my thing with Matt Jones, though. I think whoever drafts him, I think for the most part, Matt Jones would probably do really, really well. But to me, I think Matt Jones, he'll win you some games. He was kind of like a game manager at Alabama, but he was at it. He was good at, he was never asked to like carry a team on his back, a scenario like that. But to me, I feel like Matt Jones, if if he's drafted, for example, like Washington, I think that may be a good spot for him. I don't think he's going to be a huge star in the league, but I think he could be a pretty good, solid quarterback for years to come, wherever he gets drafted by. So the top 4, in my opinion, Matt Jones to me in this top 5 was kind of more of the one I was kind of set on at being a particular spot. 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're every time it's very, very close in my opinion. 1 and 2, I'm going to go ahead. 1 and 2, the quarterbacks are much closer in my opinion between ranking quarterbacks between 3 and 4. Number 4, I have quarterback Justin Fields from Ohio State. I like Fields to a certain extent. I know some people, might be upset why I have Fields so low because I've seen a couple people even have Justin Fields number 1. I think he can be good, but he has to set under quarterback for a while, in my opinion. For the most part, he's pretty good being accurate. He has pretty good deep ball. He's really mobile. Justin Fields to me kind of reminds me a little bit of Russell Wilson, but the issue with Justin Fields to me is once he gets pressured and once he gets blitzed, in my opinion, he becomes a completely different quarterback. Once he's getting pressured and blitzed, you would think, somebody who's, in my opinion, comparable to Russell Wilson, he would, start scrambling and make a play happen to throw the ball away. But in my opinion, it seems like he doesn't do that. It seems like he holds the ball way too long at times and gets sacked, and I think that's part of the reason why his completion percentage, kind of to begin the season, was so high to begin the year. But I think Justin Fields, like I said, I think his comparison is Russell Wilson. I do think he should set, for example, I think the best case scenario for Justin Fields is to get drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have been vocal and even said they're going to draft a quarterback. I feel like, there's not many better players who can sit behind than Matt Ryan. He's a potential Hall of Famer. And if Justin Fields were to get drafted by Atlanta, he can learn from Fields and, Fields can learn from Matt Ryan, and I think that'd be really good for Justin Fields. But I have Fields number 4. I think he could be pretty solid, but I feel like he's not as pro ready as some of these other quarterbacks ahead of him. Number 3 is Trey Lance from North Dakota State. To me, Trey Lance is an extremely intriguing prospect. The 2019 season, all the games he played, all the games he started, he had 42 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He did play one game this past year against Central Arkansas, and he did have an interception there. And my opinion, I think it would have been better off if Trey Lance did not even play in that game at all. I think that one particular game can maybe set him back a little bit because it's a small school like Central Arkansas, and he struggled so much. And that was the last game, actual end game that people saw him play. And so to me, I really feel like Trey Lance, if he would have played like Ohio State or Alabama, you could make a case he could be the number 1 pick. I mean, I really, really like him. My comparison at first, not just because, they have a similar, same school. At first, it was Carson Wentz. But the more I watch Trey Lance, he reminds me quite a bit of Deshaun Watson. Not small. I mean, he's a decent size. He runs when he has to. He's a really, really underrated runner. He's a great thrower. Trey Lance, to me, he was pretty accurate. He's risky, though. I mean, the level of competition for North Dakota State is a huge difference, like Matt Jones playing the SEC and teams like that. But Trey Lance, to me, I think he would be a pretty good pick. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a team would trade up for him. But Trey Lance, I think he should go in the top 8. But it's going to be really interesting because, without pro days, not every team's going to be going to a North Dakota State, without the combine. Not every single team's going to be going to a North Dakota State pro day when there's other pro days there as well. But Lance, like I said, he reminds me of Deshaun Watson. He does everything really, really well. The level of competition is kind of a question mark. But for the most part, I think Lance could be a really good quarterback in the NFL. So that is number 3, Trey Lance. If you're just tuning in, I'm live on YouTube like I do every single video. And I'm doing a top 5 quarterback prospects rankings of the 2021 NFL Draft. So number 5 was Matt Jones from Alabama. Number 4 was Justin Fields from Ohio State. Number 3 was Trey Lance from North Dakota State. And number 2, this is where it kind of gets a lot quite different. I have Trevor Lawrence number 2. I know it sounds crazy, but Chris Sims, he posted last week. He had Zach Wilson number 1. I was kind of waiting to have Zach Wilson number 1 once I did this mock draft. But Trevor Lawrence here, with him being number 2, with Trevor Lawrence being number 2, that means Zach Wilson will be 1. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I mean, he's an amazing prospect. You can make a case. I mean, this is really debatable. I just prefer Zach Wilson. In my opinion, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are 100% 1 and 2. You can just make a case for which is which. But Trevor Lawrence, to me, he reminds me a little bit of kind of Peyton Manning, but he's more mobile to him. I mean, he's accurate. He's a extremely underrated runner, and he does everything so well. The issue with Lawrence, in my opinion, I think he's a fantastic prospect. Like I said, if somebody had Trevor Lawrence being the number 1 quarterback, I would have no issue with it because this is, in my opinion, quite debatable. Wilson or Trevor Lawrence for number 1. The issue I have with Trevor Lawrence is, I mean, he's fantastic, but I think he's a little bit overrated. Because if you were to tell me, let's say I've never heard of these 2 prospects before, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. I've never heard of these prospects before. And you're telling me that one of these quarterbacks is one of the best quarterback prospects ever. He was a better prospect than Joe Burrow. He was arguably a better prospect than Andrew Luck. If you're telling me one of these 2 quarterbacks is one of the best quarterback prospects ever, and I don't know which is which, I would say that would be Zach Wilson, not Trevor Lawrence. Issue with Lawrence, to me, I feel like at times he may force the ball when he shouldn't. For the most part, his deep ball is really accurate. He's really accurate. Like I said, he's an amazing runner, but he kind of throws the ball at times when he shouldn't, maybe in the double coverage or something like that. Lawrence, I mean, he is a phenomenal quarterback. I do have him number 2, though, but I would have no issue if somebody had him number 1. So like I said, with Lawrence being number 2, that means I have Zach Wilson number 1 of BYU. Zach Wilson is easily my favorite quarterback of this draft. In my opinion, he is the best, and that's why I have him number 1. It's like I said, if you were to tell me one of these quarterback prospects is one of the best ever, I would say you're talking about Zach Wilson. That's if I did not know who, which is which. But Zach Wilson, I would say he's kind of like it's really interesting. I kind of agree with Sims. I mean, he kind of mentioned last week Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, and I do kind of agree with that because you watch Zach Wilson. The thing about Zach Wilson to me, he is amazing at everything. I mean, his mobility, he can escape out of the pocket and run for 20, 25 yards. His accuracy, I mean, everything. The off-the-script plays. You know how last season with Joe Burrow, people talked about, his off-the-script plays are just phenomenal. And I think that is the exact same case for Zach Wilson. His deep ball is absolutely incredible. It is easily the best deep ball and for all the quarterback prospects this season. It is just insane. But going back to Mahomes and Rodgers, with the deep ball, I would say that would go to Rodgers. And with the off-the-script plays, I think that's where the Mahomes factor comes in. I mean, there was a couple plays this past season where, it was just absolutely insane. It's phenomenal. Only issue I have with Zach Wilson, and I know I'm kind of being picky here, but you got to be a tad bit picky when you're having this sort of a statement for a quarterback to be number 1, is his throws towards the sideline. I've seen a couple of throws, about a throw a game or so. They'll have a throw around the sideline that's just really inaccurate, but that is literally pretty much the only thing I could think of that is bad about Zach Wilson. He is phenomenal. And, if you're just tuning in, I'm doing my top 5 quarterback prospect rankings for the upcoming 2021 NFL Draft. And I have Matt Jones number 5, Justin Fields number 4, Trey Lance number 3, the big shocker at Trevor Lawrence number 2, and Zach Wilson number 1. I mean, there is just so much I like about Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, like I continue to say, either one of these quarterbacks can be 1. I mean, it really is debatable. But in my opinion, I think this is a scenario where we could definitely see, like last season, for example, most people, for the most part, had Joe Burrow as the number 1 quarterback prospect. And some people, a couple people had Tua, which I did not agree with that at all. And a few people even had Justin Herbert as their number 1 quarterback prospect, which, I had Burrow number 1, but I could definitely see the case where Herbert could have been number 1 as well. But I think this is a scenario where we could definitely see last season, and the fact that Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, I mean, I know Joe Burrow was drafted first. Justin Herbert was drafted by the Chargers at 6, but both those quarterbacks be absolutely incredible in years to come. Both those guys were really, really good, up until Burrow got injured. But to me, I think this is, could happen with Trevor Lawrence being great and Zach Wilson being great. Also, another example is I believe the 2017 NFL Draft was when Deshaun Watson was picked and Patrick Mahomes were picked. Lots of people, debating on who's, higher on draft boards. And look at those 2 quarterbacks now. Both those quarterbacks are those are elite quarterbacks, both of them. And that's just crazy to see. And I think that's definitely a scenario that I could possibly see happen between Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. I know it's a risky pick, but like I said, Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson to me is number 1. I mean, you can make a case number 1. Personally, I have just Zach Wilson. I believe he's just a tad bit better, but in my opinion, those are without a doubt the top 2 quarterback prospects. If you're just tuning in, I'm live on YouTube doing a top 5 quarterback prospect rankings for the NFL Draft. So, this was kind of about it. Did my prospect rankings. I will go over these one more time and my comparisons. I have Matt Jones, number 5. He's the only quarterback in the top 5 I do not have a comparison for because I just really do not know who he compares to. In my opinion, Matt Jones, if you were to draft him, probably he's one of the most safest picks. I would say Matt Jones at 20 would be a safer pick than Justin Fields in the top 5. But I have Matt Jones at number 5. Justin Fields is at number 4, and my comparison for him is Russell Wilson. Issue with him, he needs to throw the ball quickly because he's going to get sacked, and that's part of the reason why his completion percentage is so up. Justin Fields to me could be really good, but I believe he needs to set just a little bit. My number 3 quarterback prospect is Trey Lance. My comparison for him is Deshaun Watson. The level of competition is a big issue, but I believe he can be really good in the NFL. And like I've been talking about, Trevor Lawrence, number 2, he reminds me a little bit of Peyton Manning with some mobility there. I think Lawrence is going to be phenomenal. Obviously he's going to go to the Jaguars. And my number 1 quarterback prospect is Zach Wilson. I think, personally, I prefer Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence. That's why I have him number 1. Zach Wilson to me reminds me of Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Whether Zach Wilson goes to the Jets, Falcons, whoever, he's going to be a fantastic quarterback in the NFL for years to come. So that was my rankings of the top quarterback prospects in the draft. If you can like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next time on the Sports Dude Show.